We'll call the special council meeting to order. It's the approval and set the proposed millage rate for 2025, 2026.
Thank you,
Blanche?
Mayor. Good afternoon, Mayor, Commissioners. Blanche Sherman, Finance Director. In accordance with the truth and millage compliance requirements set forth in Chapter 200 of the Florida statutes, the city must set the proposed millage rate and advise the property appraiser of the proposed millage rate, rollback rate, date and time in place of the tentative budget hearing. The tentative budget hearing is scheduled for Wednesday, September 3rd, 2025 at 5:15 in the council chambers. The statutes require separate motions. The operating millage rate in preparation of the budget draft of 4.6876 is 6.18% higher than the rollback rate of 4.4146. To give you an overview, is where we stand in regards to the proposed preliminary budget. This is an overview by fund that we discussed that kind of it supports that budget book that I provided to you that was by fund. Let me go back. This QR code here, and anyone on YouTube and anyone here, if you just scan this code, that gives you a link to all of our budgets, and it should include that document that I provided to the commissioners and mayor PDF.
So what happened to that QR code?
You want to scan it?
Yeah, I just wanted to, there it is. Okay.
She's under the workshop area. Kelly is.
There
Go
it
to the
is.
workshops.
Okay,
Okay.
yeah.
Hold
I
on, so
have it now.
it's
You-
under the workshops of that QR code.
That's where, no, this QR code will take you there, but the information for that, so supporting documentation for the workshops, that's where she's adding that document.
So the view agenda and documents
Mhm.
is
It
where
should
that's
be,
linked.
I'm not looking at it, but that's where it should be. That's what we talked about.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay,
I got it.
you
Yeah.
got it? Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome. Okay. Again, this is a summary of the preliminary budget by fund. Information we, each department shared with you, an overall view of general fund, proposed budgeted revenue at 103 million, expenses 104, plus the new positions take that to 108 million, and we're using about 5.6 in reserves. The street fund, you see a balanced budget, 8.4, 8.4. Again, we did increase that transfer this year by 972,000 over last year's amount. Transportation impact fees, 15.4, 15.4, based on projected revenues for FY26. In regards to the law enforcement trust fund, all of the law enforcement funds and the police discretionary fund, I know I'm skipping over recreation impact fees. Those are pretty standard, and anytime they want to purchase things that are over and above the revenue that they anticipate generating, they use the reserves to offset that. Recreation impact fees, 2.8 in regards to projected revenues, 4.4 in regards to expenses. So utilizing about 1.5 in reserves. Fire impact fee, 2 million on each side, again associated with the public safety building. The same for police impact fees. Stormwater, 2.6, based on that 20% increase is factored into that. And we do have, I think this was the one where we have a contingency of about 372,000 to help build the reserves. 401 for 43.8. Proposed expenses outside of the new positions, 43.6, adding the new positions and balanced budget. Again, this includes a 15.5% increase. Sanitation, 9.5. Proposed expenses without new positions, 9.4. With the new positions, 9.5. This factors a 15% increase in the rates there. In utility impact fees, 22.4 million. In regards to proposed revenue projections, planned expenditures, 31.1. Use of reserves, 8.8.
Is this slide uploaded? Like it's online somewhere?
No, these are things that I've added as a result of the conversations. I will send this
Yeah, I was
out to
gonna
you,
ask,
but you
do we
should,
have that here?
it's not, this, I've added
Oh, okay, I'm
information as a
looking for
result
it.
of the workshop to provide clarity, so,
Okay,
but I will send it to each commissioner and mayor. So some of the key revenues in the general fund: ad valorem taxes increasing about 4.5 million, building permits due to the continued growth about 2.4, other taxes 1.2, ambulance fees to EMS that our fire chief discussed tonight. We are showing an increase in that revenue stream about 1.1. Code enforcement fines 200,000, and of course interest income about 900,000. So those are the key revenue increases for our general fund. Again, this is a summary by division of all of the departments that you that had the opportunity to review their PowerPoints and understand their budgets in detail. This is a summary of that information. In regards to overtime, because this is one of the items that has been discussed and questioned for some time, I wanted to share with you the analysis that we did for overtime for this FY26 budget. We looked at an annual projection. We compared that annual projection with the 25 budget, and we also looked at the 24 actuals. So basically, what we budgeted is the FY26 proposed 4% over the higher of the projected FY25 or the actuals for FY24. So whichever one was higher, we added 4% to that. So the ones that you see highlighted for fire suppression, as I said earlier, when the fire chief came up, we did offset some of that overtime with adding of some of his positions because of the new positions that we're going to reduce that overtime level. And as far as utility operations, we made some adjustments over time too because of the reorg that they're going through. They're not anticipating the need in those two areas.
Blanche, do I have that here, what I'm looking at?
No, you don't have it there. Mm-mm.
Okay, because I can't see it.
You can't see it
Numbers are
on the
really
screen?
tiny. If you can just expand it a little bit.
I don't know.
I thought the whole point of the way that you presented it was so that we could see it.
I don't know if I can make
See
this
the microphone?
bigger. Let me see. Go back.
I can't even see those lines.
Yeah, you want to make it? See, yeah,
This
I
one here?
keep doing. Yeah, make it big. No, now.
Much better.
But I can't show the whole thing. Better. Okay, I'll go up and down.
You'll just have to.
I'll go up and down. Can you see it better now?
Yes, I can. And
Okay,
it's
which one do you
better
have a
than what it
question
was
about?
before. Because before I just saw little
These are the
lines.
these are the same numbers in the budget, other than where I have highlighted where we made those adjustments, the reduced numbers in the budget. Same thing you've already seen. Up, meaning not me. Okay, let me see. This way?
Yes,
Okay.
okay. So since water maintenance and wastewater maintenance is highlighted, means you adjusted those as well?
Yes, about 75,000 each. But due to, again, like the reorg that they're undergoing in this fiscal year, they're projecting that they won't need as much overtime.
What
Okay.
are they? Walk me through the columns again. I can't see the headers.
Okay, let me go back up. Mm.
That's the budget.
Yeah.
New positions.
All right. Legal and risk, that is nothing really. So you got a description, you got the annual projection. That means for the FY25. You follow me? Where I'm at on the annual projection column?
Right.
I'll start with facility maintenance. You see that amount, 25,000?
Right.
So you're expecting that at the end of the fiscal year to be less than what we budgeted,
Based on,
is what this is telling me.
yeah, this projection, yeah, that was done. Yeah, as of April 30th.
And then budget actual for 24, and then the far right is what is budgeted for this for 26.
Correct. So the actuals for 24 was 29,000. So the proposed for 26 is 4% over that 29,000.
Okay.
And you did that 4% increase with the highest number across the board.
the highest number compared to the 24 actuals and the 25 projection, whichever number is higher. I added 4%.
And I guess walk me through why only those specific ones did we do? You're highlighting the certain ones. Remind me of why you highlighted those ones.
I highlighted the certain ones because the amount here for fire suppression is not the 608. It is less like 385,000 that the fire chief presented to you because we reduced that overtime because of the new positions that he had. So he was able to reduce that overtime. So the number that he presented that you saw in that detailed budget is less than 385. But I wanted to share that information because if I did it before, you wouldn't understand the projection or the calculation.
So the 15 new hires is what helps to reduce the overtime.
Yes, it does.
So, I guess direct me in the budget itself to that overtime
Go to 2120,
2120.
and it's probably it go to the front. It's somewhere between page 16. Start at page 16, somewhere in there.
1400.
Start with page 16 and go down. Look for 2120 and look for the overtime.
So we have 2120, $226,075 on this what's been provided budget.
Yes.
So then, what am I seeing?
This 608 was reduced because he got the additional staff.
This is gonna be like last night again. I'm sure it's just not clicking for me. Be
That's
patient,
okay.
please.
That's okay.
I'm seeing 608 here.
Yes.
That's more than the 226 that's here.
Right.
So it's not a reduction.
No, I'm talking about the number that's I'm sharing with you has changed from the 608 to that 226 because we reduced it because of the additional
So
position.
these numbers are not accurate. The ones you're showing us right now. This is accurate.
Yes,
This is not accurate.
this number does not include the final amount, but I'm sharing this number with you because it speaks to the basis of this calculation. Okay, but after we did this calculation, there were some decisions made about the overtime amount, and the fire chief agreed that yes, I can reduce that amount by adding these new positions.
So originally he had 608.
Correct.
New positions came in correctly. What we're feeling is 226 is
Correct.
an
And
accurate description.
yes, it is. But to make this calculation meaningful so you can see it and understand it, the 585 is what he came in FY24 compared to what he's projecting for FY25. And this 608 represents 4% over that 585.
So in this, I'm seeing the adopted budget for 25 being 150,000, and the what you're showing us, you're showing 425.
This is the revised budget. That's the current budget.
Be
that we're
patient
on.
with me, please.
No, I'm just saying it's the current budget. Hmm.
But it's the adopted budget for 25. So those numbers should be the same then.
Not if we do transfers. And remember, doing throughout the year, I mentioned to you that the $2 million that we had set aside for the union negotiations, when we transferred that money to the fire department based on what actually occurred, we were able to increase the overtime budget as a result of that.
So I guess why wasn't that reflected in here, I guess?
Because that's adopted. Adopted compared to adopted.
Okay.
Terminology is adopted.
Okay.
Okay. So that's the basis of this calculation. You requested information about how we looked at overtime, and that's how we looked at it.
All
Any
right, can
more?
we go to the bottom of that, please?
I sure will. Just one moment. Oh man, it does not like me. I
So even with those adjustments of the highlighted ones, well, no. So this still won't be accurate. I was going to say, so we have an increase.
You out of that 767,
Mm-hmm.
you can back out, let's say 550. I'm just rounding up.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Okay.
It's tough. Just hopefully you understand. It's tough to make decisions when the numbers that I'm seeing, they change.
Well,
So it's either
again,
this number or that number. But if you're looking at this, it's this number. But if you're looking at this one, then it's a different number. Just add them up in your head and just remember it.
this is basically speaking to the overtime analysis
I understand.
that you questioned. So I'm sharing with you how we looked at overtime. But after we completed looking at overtime, we went through the budgets, we made some adjustments. If I make that change now, this right here, for those three columns that are highlighted, would not make sense. So I left them and highlighted them so I can explain why they do not agree to what you're seeing in the book. See,
But we're not using these numbers
we're using all of these numbers except for the ones that are
that you
highlighted.
highlighted.
Yes.
Those are not the accurate ones that we're using.
Yeah. Well, no, they're different.
This is
Yeah,
ones.
that's the final one.
But the rest of these that are not highlighted will match
Yes, they do.
identically.
They match identically.
Okay.
Okay. But I wanted to explain how we looked at overtime. Okay. Commissioner Velasquez, you good?
Yes, now I realize you're highlighting the numbers that have changed.
Yes, ma'am. The numbers that were adjusted because of the new positions or the reorg. Yes, ma'am. But every other number ties back.
Okay.
Okay. I got to make this smaller here.
Which one is this?
Okay. Thank you.
Assigned and unassigned. Okay.
Okay. Now I'm giving you an overview of the general fund reserves. If you recall earlier today, I told you about how we have the assigned reserves, the unassigned reserves. We do assign funds for capital reserves. We have some committed funds, non-spendable, and restricted funds as well. In regards to the committed, that includes the tree bank funds. We took 500K out in FY25 and we're taking 500K out of FY26. So you can see, Commissioner, as of 2024, that balance was about 2.7 million, but use of it in FY25 and planned use of it in FY26, estimating that balance would be 1.8. In regards to the assigned, we have culture and recreation of 555,809. Capital projects is the one that I usually use for the reserves. I create that, add funds to that for capital coming in upcoming budget years. We had about 12 million. You can call that was like 16 million in the past. We've already assigned some of that and used some of that. In FY25, we used about 4.1 with the budget amendments coming out of that. That's another 4.2, and the other 4 million that I mentioned that's available for FY26.
So we did so it was 8 million, 8.2, a little over that for 25 capital projects.
Say that again.
A total of 8.2 total of capital projects. The 4.1 plus 4.1. Is that total? That's not.
Yes, I would say that.
Okay, so that.
But the amendments are coming from the previous years. Okay, like 24. That rolled over into 25. Remember when I come
That just weren't expended.
Exactly.
That finally got expended.
Exactly. Okay, so we've exhausted that, but again, we probably have an excess at the end of the fiscal year, so I can add additional funds to that.
And that's part of general fund.
All of this is everything I'm talking about is general fund.
Okay.
Yes, sir. So the Duke settlement, I wanted to try to point that out this year to show it is in our reserves. It used to be grouped with another one. We have about out of all those funds, about 250,000 remaining right
So
now.
that's what's left of the Duke?
Yeah, that we have not, earmarked or put in the budget, and that we're utilizing. Correct. Mm-hmm. And we also set aside funds for insurance purposes. So non-spendable and restricted is like inventory. This is a financial audit thing or gap thing that we have to set aside funds that we don't spend. So down to the unassigned, which is where basically our excess usually lies. Started out at the end of 2024 at 42 million. We used about 2.5 in the budget for FY25, and with the amendments, another 6.4. And in this budget, we're looking at using another 1.1, leaving a balance of 32 million. And we're still in excess of our 25% policy requirement of 27.2 million. This is the same slide that I shared with you previously and that student that you had me share it with last year.
Does unassigned include the projects, the big projects that we still have not determined what's going to cost Golden Gem?
No, no, this is general fund. This is not the utility operations.
Okay,
So no, ma'am.
general.
This is all general fund. Okay. Any questions on this slide?
Just if we can pause for 2 seconds, just to let me. So we're in our general fund reserves. We have over 4.8 million more than our policy states.
Correct at this point.
So what are we doing with those funds?
Typically, we try to leave some funds, above that threshold, to cover the unexpected coming up in the next year. But we can use those funds just like I'm applying them here with that million to support items in the budget. So anything that we do that we add to the budget will utilize more of those funds. Like some of the pending items that I'm going to go over with you shortly.
Realistically, you're keeping about $4 million, similar to the budget amendments we made this year. It pays for all of those amendments. Is that the goal?
It could, yes.
Because alternatively,
But it doesn't prevent us from using some of those. Because keep in mind, we've already factored those numbers. Everything is already factored. As of 24, you already got your plan used right here based on the 25 budget. You got your amendments now that came from 24 rolled over to 25. So now we're going into 26.
so we don't have. It's not 32. It's 36. It's 37 million.
No, that's just the total of all of those, the 37. That's the total of the unassigned, the assigned, and the committed.
Gotcha. Okay.
Okay.
I see.
So the 32 is the unassigned, and that's what we,
Restricted. Okay.
per policy, that's what we compare to that 25%. So I feel comfortable with maybe a $2 million cushion over the 25%, 1 to 2 million, and then we'll have the excess that we can, use to add additional things to this particular budget or things
Well,
that
why
are
don't we help to apply to like rate increases and things of that nature that directly impact our residents?
Well, this is not this is the general fund.
I know, but can't we transfer that into a? We've done it before. Didn't last year we took? I think we didn't take any money from general fund to fund any enterprise.
No, we increased the rate we made cuts, and we increased the rate from 40% to 23.75.
And so there's no way to save on the rate increases.
If we make additional cuts, I mean, keep in mind with the rate increases, we're trying to build reserves in those funds. It's got to happen. It's got to happen. We cannot continue to operate in, the way that we are.
Okay.
And again, I talked with the rate analysts. They're available, so we're going to proceed with scheduling the workshop for the 17th at 5 o'clock, and they can give you the details behind that. But I provided a list here based on the discussions that we had throughout the budget workshop of some other items that we can consider in the tentative budget in September. And that's once it's provided the in-house cost benefit analysis for the city attorney, the BTR program that is being proposed to sunset as of September 30th to October 1st. The commissioner's travel that is currently 9,000 and training that is currently 5,792. The discussions pertain to moving that to 2020 or a new cost center and also increasing that amount and adding additional travel and training requested by the commissioners. But we need that list so we can know what those items are. Another item that was discussed was the commissioner's salary adjustment. Again, researching that information. I will get with the city attorney and the city administrator regarding the basis of that salary adjustment. I did find was provided an ordinance, and I will get with Cliff to discuss that to see what we can do.
And you had felt that we were overpaying.
Based on the information that I received from the previous city administrator who looked at it last year at the request of Commissioner Velasquez, that's what I recall.
And that was an ordinance that was from 1995?
That I believe, yeah, if I can recall correctly, I think it's a very old ordinance. I think the date was 1995.
93. So this is from
90
1993.
something. It was 93.
So it's based
Okay.
off of that calculation.
Okay. No,
Yeah,
I don't
as
know
long
if
as
it's based off that. That's just the ordinance.
But do we have anything showing what it's based off of now?
That's what I'm trying to find. Did
Okay.
you find anything right
So
now?
how they determine if we were overpaid if they don't have an ordinance that they're comparing it to?
Well, I'm researching. I mean, it's unfortunate that, Mr. Bass is no longer with us. Great, but, he did all of that. And
So who had asked her question? Who had determined that they had to look at something? That was
that was Jacob.
that was
And I
Jacob.
don't know what, I don't
How
know
did
what his,
Jacob? Oh, you don't know.
Jacob I don't know. I don't know. He didn't share that information. So I'll see what I can find. Between Ratley and I, we'll find something.
Okay.
Okay. And we'll get with the city attorney. Also brought up during the workshops was the neighborhood restoration program for 25,000. You mentioned to put it on hold pending additional information from Orange County's program to see, does it have an impact. Discussions pertaining to the Tiger Bay membership for the mayor, that's pending verification of eligibility and benefit to the city. So we'll be providing that information. Also, additional 25,000 for park holiday decorations for Alonzo Williams Park. And for the spring orchestra concert, about 30,000 is what I recall. And in regards to the community events and partner events, you wanted to break out by event. Am I understanding correctly?
I don't know if it was a necessary. I think it was kind of our core events that we want to continue, I guess. But I don't.
Correct.
And then it was kind of open to if there's new events that people bring. I don't want to pigeonhole us into one. Nope, it's got to be these 6 events. It's if there's new cultural events or whatever it may be, then they can. I thought that was the understanding. Maybe I got this wrong, but
Correct. That's what I understood from it, was to look at our traditional historic events,
Mhm.
break those out separate, and then have a grant program
For
for
the
the
remaining.
community and cultural events.
Okay.
So Camp WeWa total cost related to the grant requirements is something you requested, Commissioner Nesta, and you want a revenue and cost comparison and consider performing a marketing plan on Camp WeWa. Additional parking at Alonzo Williams Park was discussed as well. I don't really have a cost for that. Additional lighting in the chamber parking lot was brought up by Commissioner Velasquez as well. An upgrade to the council chambers. I got some of this. It's about 70,000 with for the additional speakers and mics. And also, I need to incorporate the public service reorg. Any questions on the list?
on the public services side, there's not necessarily a financial change to that. Right? It's moving money kind of around, but it's not.
It's moving people.
Right.
I-
So we're going to be moving that cost to.
Yeah, it's moving people. They may be going. I don't know how the people have moved, and some of the positions have changed.
But it's a
So-
net neutral, effectively.
Yeah,
right?
it might just
should.
impact some of those percentage increases you'll see in those cost centers.
Sure.
Yeah.
But it's. I mean, it's. The
And you'll
same-
see decreases in others.
Okay. And that'll balance out what we're already spending. Okay.
Let's see. Okay. Other requests, federal lobbyist report from Gray Robinson. I think the mayor's going to provide that.
I think we've already.
You already emailed it?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
did
we
send
emailed
that,
it.
the latest one
We
out, and
haven't,
we
I
have it.
haven't received that. Did
I-
you send it out?
I received
Yeah,
it.
sent it out earlier in the
Mhm.
week, and I did have you all added to that monthly distribution list as well.
Okay,
You
good.
did send it out?
Oh, and commissioner's discretionary spending policy, that's something you want us to work on. And I apologize, it looked like I have Camp Weewa twice. One. So, next steps. Today, we're here to set the proposed rollback rate and millage rate. A budget workshop will be scheduled for the 17th for the proposed rate increases. I need to submit the trim information by August 1st. I need to provide the notifications of any rate increases to the customers by August 1st. And we want to schedule or set the first budget hearing for September 3rd tonight. With everything provided, and this simply only pertains to the general fund, everything provided, we're not requesting an increase in our millage rate. We want to keep it the same at the 4.6876. And of course, the calculated rollback rate is the 4.4146.
So usually, in years past, you've broken this down into multiple options, not just current millage rate and rollback, but you've broken it out into increase.
When discussions came up that, we were potentially looking at an increase, yes, I provided that. But
Yeah, because there's nothing to compare. We're just doing the same millage rate. But in the past, it was like if it was 1/3, 1/2, uh, a full mill.
It just helps for discussion's sake.
Yeah, it would show us what the revenue would be, or because if we set the millage rate today, we could only go rollback. But if
You
you
know.
set it,
you can go down.
you can go
Right.
down.
That's what.
Mhm. Right.
So that's the
So-
point, and I think that's what we did last year, though, is
Right.
that we set it high and then came back down, if I'm not mistaken.
Probably in the second meeting because there were discussions about increasing that millage rate through, at that time, with the union negotiations and then with additional funds to the street fund. So if you anticipate increasing that rate, then I would have to recalculate everything, whatever you want to propose as well as the new rollback rate. So
Well, it'll help to understand what additional revenue it would do, and then where could we put those resources and assets? Does it go to streets?
how much do you want to?
I don't know.
I don't.
Well,
There's nothing here to tell me how much.
And commissioners,
May
just
I ask my question?
yeah, just a reminder. A couple slides ago, Blanche had provided the amount that were above the reserve policy, so that is also something to consider as well.
But we need that. I mean, we're making almost that same amount in budget amendments every year, so that difference is going to be needed in budget amendments.
I guess the question is, what is it that we're proposing? Are we thinking that we're going to be going up, or so she can do the calculation? I mean, what other projects are we thinking that we need to consider?
Infrastructure. I mean, that's
Do you
all.
have
That's all we hear is infrastructure. She's in. If you
have an
drive these
amount?
roads, you can see that. So it would increase in streets, increase in what our water and
But we
and-
had the departments here. Did we discuss that with them so we have a figure so we can give her a figure? Because if not, we're just throwing out numbers.
We're not throwing out anything right now.
But
There's nothing to have the discussion. Is my point.
what is it that you want to see increase in the budget?
How much more revenue do you want to generate is what we ask.
Well, I guess point me to how much we're spending on new streets this year.
How much you were spending on new streets this
Correct.
8 or 9 million.
year? New, are you talking about in the streets
Repave.
funds or are you talking about
Repave.
Repaving,
Increasing
doing-
infrastructure,
Right.
getting roads to what they need to be. No
2 million,
potholes, what-
2 million
people
for roads, and I think it was about 700 and some for sidewalks.
Can you point me to that in this?
It's in Fund 101, which is after the general fund. Second
It's
tab.
after.
Yes, Fund 101 is after the general fund. Look at the second tab.
Okay.
Now go to, after the revenue, go to the streets detail, if that's where you are. I don't have my book up here at the podium. I think it's 2 million for roadway improvements, and about 700 and some thousand for sidewalks. And then again, I'm talking off the top of my head. I don't have the book.
We would just be blindly adding stuff to the budget. I don't.
The 2 million is on page 5. And the 760 is on page 4 for the sidewalks.
I'm trying to think, so we've got it on a plan. I mean, I know that, I wish Michael were here, but we had the plan was pretty much, is it 10 years, or whatever the kind of the life expectancy of the roads with the PCI, survey that we did. This was the number each year that we would keep the roads at whatever the PCI, where you don't have to go and redo the whole, do the
Rebuild of the base.
rebuild the complete road.
So there's 617,000, but that's specific to sidewalks. That's exclusively for Piedmont Lakes.
Are you on page 4 of 6?
Yes. Am I reading that correctly?
They said the sidewalk Piedmont Lakes subdivision estimated cost was $230. So 1 out of the 4 phases have been completed. So the FDOT sidewalk repairs and all of that. I think that was just related to the status of Piedmont Lakes.
I guess I'm just trying to understand what is the goal right now, because we had the department heads present.
Right.
The department heads identified what their needs were. So
Correct.
are we going to go back and analyze what their needs?
Well,
I'm just trying to
in years
understand.
past, since you're asking, we've had the fire department provide a needs analysis, and it wasn't truly what they needed, and we had to force them to take more. So that's my concern, is that we're here again trying to not have a true budget. Yes, the department head said they have what they need, but do they have the tools to grow with our city and be successful in the services they're providing to our residents? So we've had to do this, and we've asked the previous fire chief, is this everything you need? You don't need anything else. He said, absolutely nope, I don't need a dime more. And I think that year it was a substantial budget increase that we gave without their ask, which we absolutely needed. I'm so happy we did that.
I wasn't here. The year.
So are we looking to just blindly increase? I'm just trying to understand what we base it off of, because we spoke with the department head. So are we just going to just throw numbers out and just come? I'm just
no,
trying to
it's build a
understand.
buffer.
So we're just going to randomly build a buffer
I don't know
without
what the number
numbers?
is.
I think
we-
we have a buffer.
I'm just trying to understand.
And
all.
that's what we're
What's the
sharing
goal
with you.
right
The 4.8 give us a buffer.
So
Okay,
that's
so
for
we
different
have
budget amendments, I guess. See, we
No,
don't have a
that's-
plan. So you guys are saying a buffer that doesn't have a plan, but when I bring that up, that says I want to build a buffer without specific line items, we can't do that, or it's not advised.
I don't
So
think. What is it that you want to build? I guess what's the buffer?
I want to listen to the residents, and that's the point. Is that I would like to make sure that what they are expecting in our services are being provided. We need certain buildings need to be renovated properly. That wasn't brought up here, or being pushed down the road. We have a lot of new buildings coming up, and who knows what the cost of this, the public services building, the public safety building, excuse me, and training facility. All of those things need to be done. So, are we making sure that all of this is being built properly for not only us and this board the way it sits now, but years down the road? It's trying to make sure that we're keeping up versus trying to catch up with 15, 20, 30% increases. I know those are our enterprise funds, but same thing with the millage rate. Are we actually keeping up with what we need to? Because how does this millage rate compare to other municipalities?
again, I don't have that information handy, but I know it was shared last year. I think we still, a little
Well, and so
bit
that's my point too.
higher
It
compared
was shared last year.
because we were considering at
A
that
rate
time
increase.
to change that millage rate. Here, there has been no discussion or appetite to change the millage rate. And because we're operating within the budget, within a reasonable reserve level, with excess reserves, say for instance, if a hurricane comes again, that's how we use that excess to do that temporarily to cover things like that. In regards to other budgets, that has already been factored. The rollover, that's factored.
I understand that.
So you want to increase the millage?
So now with Golden Gem, I know that we allocated 12.5 million.
That's in the utility operations
Okay.
fund. That's what that's already included in that
But then we did
budget
$2 million,
per year for the trying to fund the repair of the
right? That's
Yeah, right.
taken out of
401.
right.
Not this fund.
And we can't use any reserves to help build other reserves in other funds.
I mean, if that's the pleasure of the council, if
So
you
you
want to
can do that.
if you want to transfer money to an enterprise fund, that's not, typical. The enterprise funds fund because of
Well,
the
typically you have
cost.
small increases over the years. We aren't typical and haven't done that. So now we need to do something out of the typical, ordinary way of doing things.
Well, I think, again, you did have some small increases over the years, but they were not adequate. And of course, the cost has gone up over the years. Remember, you increased 3%, 6%. And so last year, that was a major increase for the utility operating fund to the 23.75%. We're trying to support the capital improvement program that they want in the Fund 401 and 403.
Well, that we need. It's not just
Yes,
one; it's a need, and there's so
yes,
much more. That's
yes.
even that
What's the goal?
14.5 million between the two funds being spent on Golden Gym isn't nearly enough. So
Hmm.
there's an opportunity here that if we increase our millage rate, we could help fund some of these enterprise funds, the reserves, and help to keep rates low right now, or
But-
lower. We're
So
still gonna have to increase them.
But you're just taking one tax and putting another tax on. You're not changing anything.
All I'm doing is preparing for the future.
So what's the
I'm
goal?
not saying get rid of completely the rate increase because we've needed that for years to properly do it, but it helps to soften the hit to our residents.
Is
But,
that
but
that's
you're,
not
you're
softening?
going up on taxes to pay for a decrease in water rates. I don't
You're
understand.
still increasing it.
That doesn't make any sense.
I'm not saying trade one for the other, but it softens the
You
blow.
said
What you're
trade the.
doing.
So that's fine. So you guys are okay with substantial increases on the rates that everyone's experiencing?
No, we're not at all. But
No.
you're saying transferring from one fund to other fund. That's
Correct,
essentially
because
the
then
same.
it'll help soften over the years of what we're doing.
But you're going up on the property tax rate to give them a utility rate decrease. That doesn't make any sense. I mean,
because you would still have to
it
increase the
needs
property
they need to
taxes.
stand on their own, and we're getting there.
That's the purpose of an
We're not
enterprise
getting
fund.
there. We're negative 3.2 in one fund, negative $1 million in another. We're not getting there.
So, Commissioner, so what is that you're asking the council, the pledge of the council?
I've already said it. I want options to what does it look like to increase?
Do you understand what options he's looking for?
And not if I don't know what the amount that he needs, but I
don't-
can tell him an
Similar
increase.
to last year, and that's I guess
Give me a minute, please. Let me get a calculator. I don't have one here.
well, I don't expect you to do it right now.
Well, I'm trying to set
it.
it
We don't have to set it right now. It has to be done by September 1st.
I know that Commissioner Smith is out the week of the 20 something. So
I'm
the
not
only
suggesting
time
that.
next week,
There's many more days in the month. My point is, last year, and you're putting this on me that I didn't ask to have more information. I've been asking for a lot more information this entire week that I don't have. And now you're saying, well, you didn't ask for any, you weren't even talking about rate increases, so I didn't give you the information.
Commissioner, this presentation has been available how long?
Less than a week.
Okay, so you had a week to
this
look at this.
this presentation was available on July
So if
3rd.
you needed additional information
Yeah.
prior to this meeting, it should have been requested.
Yeah, this information was in the original presentation. It was back
So I
on
asked
July
for
3rd.
additional information, got that yesterday.
About this millage rate here,
Got-
increase?
The millage rate helps to understand the budget.
But you should have asked for this
So they
before
go
tonight.
hand in hand. So I'm sure you've reviewed
Only
all of it in
information I've
detail.
added in this presentation is information you requested.
All I'm asking is for more information on that.
We should have asked prior
Just
to
give
this
more
to the meeting.
options of what we have. I'm not saying we're going to increase it, but what does that look like so that if other departments say, well, hey, maybe we could and have a little bit more here, a little bit more there, then at least we're there. And then at our final meeting, no, we're not going to increase it, no problem, but at least give the options and understand, give it to the residents to understand as well.
So 2.7, as you can see, the difference between the rollback rate and the current rate, a difference between those two millages is about 2.7, maybe a little more, 2.73. So that means if we end up going back to the rollback rate, we'll lose revenue in the amount of 2.1. So just say that I make that 3 even, and I know this is an estimate here. So every
Make
3
what,
point,
make what 3?
instead of the 2.7, I'm rounding up. Okay. So about a 3-point change, we would, either increase. If we go to 4.9876, we'll get another 2.1 million. And this is an estimate here.
I understand.
Okay.
But keeping it the way that it is, if we don't roll back and just keep it the way it is, it's still a 14.1% increase, correct?
Correct. Then that is driven by, you see the change in the tax base.
Correct. So
Okay,
although we're maintaining it, it's still an increase either way. It's still an increase in taxes to our residents.
yeah, the tax base is
Correct.
increased. Mhm.
No, tax base, not,
Not the taxes, tax base.
Well, it
Yeah.
is a higher tax amount.
no.
A dollar
it's-
for dollar.
You've also got new construction that now is
It's
paying
factored in there
taxes.
too. We just got, our tax base has increased. The value of our tax base
I
has
understand,
increased.
can't
but
change
everyone's
that.
taxes also
Well,
go
yes.
up. If they're homesteaded, they go up 3%.
Correct.
They, potentially,
Correct. So
if their
taxes aren't
value
going
went
up
up,
then.
Well, you
if
can't.
their value went up,
Yeah, because the value went up.
I
So the
don't
only
know.
way for that to
That's not
happen,
in
the
our
value has to go
control.
down
Yeah.
to decrease the tax base.
Well, you do a rollback rate.
Is that what you're proposing?
I'm proposing I want all the information that's available so that we can make
You
an
should have
educated
requested prior to the
decision.
meeting.
Please don't interrupt me. To make an educated decision for our residents, and our residents can give feedback with that same information.
Commissioner Nestor, I think you're wasting the residents' taxpayers' money right now. And it's costing us because you knew prior to this meeting that whatever information that you needed, you should have asked prior to this meeting. So now you can't make an informed decision and you're wasting time.
If you'd give us, you said you want to look at a 25, basis point
I just
increase,
want, we had,
we
you
would
guys
we
built the expectation last year of what
we
these,
could have given it to you.
You
We'd
should
have had
ask
it.
for
She'd
it.
have had the
Had
numbers
you,
for you.
had
but
you asked
now
before,
the
I
last,
would have done
the
it.
last hour, like last year, we're now grappling with,
correct, because you guys rushed this and you gave us weird information that I can't track
You had an
anything
entire
with,
week to review this information.
and it was so much different than what last year's presentation was.
But you saw this a week
So
ago.
that's my point, is that I didn't think that I would have to ask this because you'd present it in the same way that you've done years past.
But
not
you
just
had the
last year, years
presentation.
past.
And as I mentioned before, that was because the discussions, okay, included anticipating or requesting an increase in the millage. This is the same slide that was presented in years past when there was no increase in the millage.
I mean, last year we talked, I wanted to get a quarter mil increase.
Mhm.
Commissioner Smith, as I recall, said, I'd like to get some more money in for streets.
Correct.
And said, so we came back and we said, okay, let's go up a half and then we'll decide at the next meeting or at the actual rate hearing
Mhm.
what we would do. And we went to the half mil rate increase.
Correct.
We had the options were there. We knew what we were looking at. And here we are today and nobody said a thing until right now. And now all of a sudden we're going, I don't know. I don't understand it.
Well, what I don't understand either is that I get full information, not even full information, yesterday, 30 minutes before the meeting started. So I just over 24 hours to review the updated information, which isn't full information either that we've had in previous years.
You had
So that's my point.
information that was provided to you the day before. I think what was the night I gave you books at the meeting, council meeting? Tuesday night.
Tuesday, July 9th.
At the meeting, remember?
July.
That was Tuesday. So you were providing information then that gave
That was
you the
limited
details.
information, correct.
That gave you details of what was included in this budget.
Not tracking back to understand where we've been going. So again, this was new information that I was using to base decisions off of. That we
Okay.
all were.
Again, that what I'm saying, to say that you didn't have information, we did give you information. You just
Limited
wanted,
information. I'll agree with
you
you on
wanted
that.
additional information.
Yes,
So-
limited information.
At the request of your additional information, we provided that additional information as soon as we possibly can. And you got another book. But included in the information that went out, you have the presentations and the details that support those presentations included in that book. In the details that went out with the agenda. The only reason why you don't see options here, because nowhere in the discussions of this workshop did anyone make a suggestion that they wanted to add more, that we need to increase the millage if because the fire department did not get this, the police department did not get that. Nowhere. When we went into last year's budget, with the mayor's plan to do something to support the union, the firefighters. And then Commissioner Smith brought up during the workshops that he wanted to increase the millage additionally to support the streets funds. That's why you saw the presentation that you saw. This one here, there was no indication of that. And in the past, when there's no indication of that, this is how the millage is presented.
And what could have happened last year, we could have gotten in a real jam with
Me
the
calculating
numbers.
at the
She's
podium.
calculating on the fly, and if she misses about a hundredth of a decimal point, we go back to the rollback rate.
Exactly.
I mean, it gets ugly really fast.
Well,
So,
that's not what I'm asking either. I don't want to get us in that position either.
well, then
This
let's
is
just
a
go with the.
system generated.
So I guess
This
the question
robot.
is, what is
It's
it that?
system generated with
Yes.
OpenGov.
No, God never. This is out of the trim system
Okay.
for the Department of Revenue Property Appraisals.
So,
That
and here's my concern too. We passed a budget last year.
yes.
First meeting in October, we had a budget amendment.
Oh, well. That was
It's
that
those
50,000.
type of things that, and we saw that coming. That was
Mhm.
definitely foreseeable. So I just want to get ahead of those things.
And hopefully we are, but you do need to understand that we can't predict everything in a budget. It's a plan. So when you make decisions after October 1st, like Emerson Park,
Mhm.
there's no way I can have that in a budget. You haven't made the decision until the upcoming year. So you have to incorporate those things in accordance with state statute in your budget in order to proceed with spending in those
And
efforts.
so here's the point with that is that when we bring in the directors, and I want to thank Blanche and I think Radley and Blanche's team and all the directors that came in. And I mean, we multiple discussions got the budgets in place, but we don't, I would rather them be tight on their budget and come back to you guys for a budget amendment than us having a slush fund within those accounts that the chief could spend willy nilly or anybody else, any other department. This gives you full authority over additional spending that we haven't budgeted. If you want to put it as just wide open, instead of we only need $1 million, put $1.5 million in, have at it, because then you got $500,000 that every department can spend without any oversight from this body. So if that's what you want to do, that's sure your
Are you
prerogative.
indicating that we have day-to-day discretion on what goes on in departments now? That seems like what you're insinuating.
No,
Yeah, I don't have any discretion on what goes in, what goes out. Things get spent.
you have each you have a line item. Each line item has an amount in there. If the line item is so, we'll take the chief back there. Let's say we got a line item for uniforms, and the line item is $40,000. Well, you know what? I want maybe 10 more blues. For really dressy ones, and they're $3,000 a set. And he said, well, because I've got the slush fund above what I need for my uniforms. He says, yeah, I'm going to go do it. He has every right to do it. It's within his budget. It's what we've approved. He can spend it. The way we're doing it now, which is we hold all our department heads accountable. And if there's something above what they've asked for, it has to come back for approval. I don't know how you could be any more transparent than that.
The point is just proper budgeting.
You're right, and we are.
So let me just ask this. So we're over the 25% that we say that we want on
Yes, ma'am.
reserves, $4.8 million.
Yes, ma'am.
That's actually sort
And-
of
A cushion for us. Yeah.
a what?
Yeah, that's excess over the required reserve amount.
And so if we come up with anything in addition to what we have adopted and budgeted for each department, because you're right, every department came up and said that everything they presented was enough for them for the new year.
Keep in mind, every budget amendment that we have, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're using reserves. Okay, sometimes there are additional revenue streams, like some of the grants that we have.
Okay.
So,
let me give you another perfect example. We had the accident this morning, and we just totaled out an ambulance.
Mhm.
So we're going to get from the insurance company, we're going to get a depreciated rate on that ambulance, and we're going to get $50, $75, maybe $100,000 for that ambulance. It's what, $450 something?
think
What's
about 375.
$375?
Mhm.
So we're going to have to come up with the difference between whatever the insurance company pays us and the brand new ambulance. So there's a perfect example of
If we
that
can't find it in
we
the
have to come
budget, we'll
back.
come back.
We have to come back
hmm
and ask the commission, the council, do we want to buy the new
To replace
ambulance to
this.
replace the one that's been totaled? So
So in addition to, we've had other areas, and again, if as long as the departments are happy and are serving our residents properly, which I hope that they are, and we've had Golden Gem. They basically just asked for, it was Mr. Debo asked for $950,000, and kind of was a, let me do what I need to do to stay out of my way, is somewhat what he had said to get that project done. We all agreed to it, budgeted it. Mr. Sherman, you've come here and said, I want to add additional 75,000 to kind of let me do what I need to do.
No,
On Emerson Park stuff that
on
happened.
the Emerson Park, so I can cover the anticipated cost. I wouldn't have to come
Correct,
back.
but it wasn't,
Mhm.
we didn't know what that was for. So
Mhm.
to say that we know every line item, it's a mischaracterization of some of the truths that have happened.
Well, no,
I
it's not.
also came back with a budget amendment where I
To fix
reversed. No, to reverse it because we had got the proceeds from the loan and the funds from Emerson
remember.
Park. Hmm.
We know exactly what the funds were used for Emerson
Yeah, I do
Park,
know.
so it
I
wasn't
do.
blindly used.
Right.
Yeah, we didn't use it. We used them to support
But
that effort. Yes, and we do have details pertaining to that. We do.
After the fact, yes, and
Yeah,
that's my point. We didn't know what front. That was the questions I had asked, and you said I'm just cushioning it with $75,000 more.
only because of the sensitivity behind that timeline associated with
Right.
that.
Right.
but we knew
Okay.
what project it
Yeah.
was allocated
Yes,
for.
it was so
wasn't
related
just
to
free
the
money for
Emerson
whatever.
Park. Yes, it was.
But
It covered legal.
we had to meet the timeline, and if we didn't have the money available when it needs to be paid, then we could lose the whole
Yeah,
the whole
we had to
plan
pay for a
could go down in
survey.
flames.
All of that stuff
Yeah.
came up as a
Yeah.
result of trying to get everything underway.
So what are we trying to?
All right. Why don't we do this? Let's go to public comment, then we'll come back and
Okay, and just so you know, with this, just an FYI, I need 2/3.
Which is 4 to 5, yeah.
okay. Public comment.
My trash can. Rod Olson, 3156 Rolling Hills Lane. We don't have enough money in streets and sidewalks. Resurfacing one lane of road is $127,000 to $380,000. 2 lane new, $2 to $3 million a mile. 4 lane new, $4 to $10 million a mile. Sidewalks, $750,000 per mile. Resurfacing sidewalks, $10 a square foot. I want to thank the department heads and staff for putting things together. The challenges that we have rely on the leadership. Clearly, you must start earlier. The budget process is a marathon based upon historical data. It is not a sprint with limited and ever-changing facts. Every time you turn around, you get another book in front of you. A lot of smoke and mirrors, limited data available, and data keeps changing. Without timely, accurate, and a 5-year retroactive and year-to-date numbers in front of you, you're making uninformed decisions. You're shooting in the dark. Based upon what I've witnessed over the last 3 days, Apopka's 25-26 budget year falls somewhere between a wing and a prayer and swag. And if you're not familiar with swag for the budgeting process, sophisticated wild ass guess. Staffing, you're down 88 positions. May 14th report. It was reported by HR on the 7th of this month, just Monday. It's still 62. That's 12 to 18% of your staff short. That's why you're not getting the job done. That's why people are stressed. That's why you have turnover. We're operating with an oar out of the water. We must stop kicking the can down the road. You must confirm the preventative maintenance. Every one of the departments has said they did. Yet the report I got in May from the city showed none. Over 2,000 pieces of equipment with no last date serviced. It is unbelievable that you continue to approve new development one after another. And finally, one question asked, way after the cattle have left the corral, oh, we need some money for sidewalks. Kids are walking on the street. That has to be tapping in the budget process. It has to be happen in the development process, not later. You must temporarily halt growth until we have the infrastructure in place to operate properly. The developers should be providing the roadways, sidewalks, water, sewer, and needs to their developments, not fall on the taxpayers. Please take a good look in the mirror as you present this information. Please mark in your calendar October 8th, because that's the first meeting after this new budget comes in place, and the first time of 24 times you'll be changing the budget because it wasn't budgeted properly in the first place. We deserve better than a wing and a prayer and a swag. Thank you.
anybody else? Okay, close the public hearing.
Mayor?
Yeah.
Just to share one additional thing. I know we talked during this budget workshops about the public safety building.
Yes.
And we mentioned the bonding. We're waiting on the design to get underway so we can get to a level of design so we can get a better cost estimate. Now, with that bond, if we do a GO bond, that will require a referendum. If we do a general revenue bond. It will not. Either way, with that bond, if, especially with the GO from previous discussions with our financial advisor, we would probably likely have to increase the millage rate at that time.
Walk me through Geo.
General obligation bond. So it is supported by probably some of the tax revenue. So if we go after that 125 million, we probably increase the millage rate to support paying that debt back.
Is it general obligation versus what other kind of
General
bond?
revenue bond.
General revenue.
Yes.
And which one requires a referendum?
Obligation.
Okay.
Okay.
So, but aren't we anticipating to get those bonds next year?
Again, the process to do that will include potentially increasing the millage rate to support it.
Since you brought that up, are we able to include the training center in the same process and get them both done at the same time?
I have it definitely being considered. Yes.
Okay.
Hmm.
So then we'll push the bond issuance till FY27.
Well, right now we don't have any cost estimate. We got that rough cost estimate.
Right.
Nothing based on actual design. So they're just starting the design. They're updating some of their needs and accommodations. That changes the cost. So typically when you're doing a major capital project similar to this, you get to a certain percentage of the design to get a more,
Accurate.
there you go. And that's what we're
So we're waiting on that to
So
still.
we're timing everything according to that.
So with that information,
Yes.
tell me if I'm wrong. I'm just repeating, I think what you're saying, just rewording it. Next year, we will definitely have to have a millage rate increase to accompany
Depending on where we are with the design.
the
with
debt
this building.
service.
Yes, depending on where we are with the design of that public safety building.
Okay.
Okay.
And that's just anticipating the public safety building. So that's not if we get a new training center or firing range.
That would actually increase the amount that was proposed of, when we looked at it a little bit earlier when we were moving a little faster.
Sure.
Yeah.
And see, so that just like with the lift station 17, it'll be some would come out of 403
Mhm.
because it's extra capacity. So like we've added, like station 1, how many new firefighters or
Mhm.
of your staff, admin staff,
Mhm.
you've added, that could come out of 403. Same with police officers. We added, 6. You could
Well, we're doing impact fees too.
right. So I'm saying yes.
Mhm.
I didn't mean 403. Yes, impact fees. I'm
Yes.
sorry, impact fees. Yes. So
Mhm.
you can use impact fees to pay some of the debt service based
Correct.
on the growth from when. So the building we've got now versus what the building will actually end up, being able to support. So
Correct.
some of that, which is what we do, even with, we can do with the water plants and wastewater
Right.
plants.
How
as
you
well.
split it based
Yeah,
on that.
exactly.
Yeah.
Based
And
on
this will be shared between the general fund and the impact fee funds. And if you can recall, when we had the meeting and we gave the update on the impact fees, I shared with each of you the information that came from the rate consultant that indicated how much those impact fees can basically support paying that debt back. And how much it would, I think around that time, and I hate doing this when I don't have numbers, but it was somewhere a little bit over 10 million a year. And they said the impact fees can probably cover 2 million or something like that.
Right.
So we're sharing that. It's going to be, the payback will be with the police and fire impact fees as well as the general fund. But that general fund component needs to be supported by potentially an increase in the millage rate.
Well, you're saying no matter it's when we get that bond, we will definitely need an increase.
Oh, yeah.
So I guess my point, similar to our rate increases, is why not do something, a small movement now, so next year, the year after, it's not a big one that everyone is saying, my goodness. So
If you do it now, it'll be used now.
it doesn't have to. You're not using the revenue
Now we're using all the revenue. That's why we're using the excess reserves.
well, Golden Gem Road, I know we said we're kind of,
Hold on. Excuse me. No, we haven't.
If there's a GO bond, there's no decision to make because it's voted debt millage. Once voters approve it, you have no discretion. It goes into the budget, has nothing to do with general fund. That's the way it works.
but we'd have to
Pay
we
it back.
still have to budget
I'm-
to pay for it.
But it becomes a part of your budget automatically if the
Right.
bond is passed. You don't have any discretion once the voters say yes, then that is now off the table as a discussion item. It's in the budget.
Well, I
Right,
would
but
kind of
we,
consider like an unfunded mandate. I still need to figure out how to pay for it though, right?
yeah, we got to pay it back, and
Like
it,
there's
and I'm
not on the referendum, it's not going to say, here's how this is going to get paid.
No, it's going to be, if it's a GO bond, it's paid from property tax. That's what a GO bond is.
That's my
and that's what
point.
we're talking about.
Right.
We're on the same
But
page here,
there's
I
not a
think.
discretion. There's no decision to be made. If you have a referendum that says a $500,000, then that's what you're going to spend to pay back that bond, because that's what the voters approve, and then that's what you spend. And so if your regular millage,
Hold on, walk me through that again, because so the referendum is going to state not the cost of the project, but the increase in the mill, or both.
it's going to say both. It's going to say the cost of the project. Let's say it's $27 million, at a rate to be of maybe $250,000 or $500,000, and the voters are going to say yes or no. And if they say yes, what they said yes to is automatically, unless you want to default from the get-go, because the voters have told you what to do, in the budget. So if you have voted debt millage, that's what we're talking about now, and then you have what we're talking about in general about the general fund and all this other stuff.
And
That's
we
how that
didn't
goes.
discuss that. And well, yesterday
But
it was
the
said we
source,
don't need a referendum, or earlier today it was said we don't need a referendum, and so that's where I'm
but
just trying to get this new information.
I think what the mayor was referring to, and I know that this was a discussion that I had with Edward before he passed. He was trying to look at doing a general revenue bond, but basically, I've met with the financial advisors, and what they recommend is a GO bond that does require a referendum. It does require an increase in the millage, which creates a debt millage. So we're saying the same thing.
Well, I didn't realize again.
Yes.
So before you got here today,
Sure.
it was said you don't need a referendum. So this is new information that I'm just gaining now.
I'll give you a perfect example that's relatively recent. City of Maitland, brand new library, millions of dollars. They sent it to the voters to approve not only the amount to be spent on the project, which supplemented in that case money that the city already had. They needed an additional, I don't know, 14, 15 million or whatever, and how much they would each agree to pay in property taxes, i.e. a percentage of millage, an extra quarter of a point, an extra half a point, or whatever it was. When the voters say yes, the decision is made. That's it. There's nothing to discuss. That will be in the budget as what's called voted debt millage. Revenue bonds are different. Revenue bonds are essentially can be anything from a loan you get at a bank, and you have some fund to pay for it. Used to be a big one was communications tax. There can be various other sources of revenue in a government to pay for those things, and that's based on other income. But if you're talking about a GO bond, which is why I asked the question, that's a non-discretionary item the minute the voters approve it. You don't have to even discuss it. It will be that number.
Okay. And thank you for again. This is new information because an hour ago it was we don't need a referendum at all. So, and I guess there is still an option to go either way. So I understand that, but you're saying we're going to go with the
Yeah, that's the discussions I've had with the financial advisor. What Attorney Shepard is sharing with you is the process.
okay. I understand.
Okay.
Again, just new information. That it wasn't.
Yeah, and so
brought
that's
up.
what I'm saying. We are anticipating if we proceed with the public safety building, if we incorporate the training center, that we will have to do a bond. We've been talking about a bond. Again, at one point, and this is a true statement, Mr. Bass was thinking about a revenue bond, but on my interaction with the financial advisor and the discussions, we're looking at a GO bond that will require referendum and an increase in the millage rate.
A GO bond probably the lower rate because it's
Yeah, it's considered one of the safest investments you can make
Right.
because the taxpayers have voted to tax themselves the extra millage, whatever that may be. And that's why in the budget, it's separate. It's called, when you do your resolution, voted debt millage. So if you had any existing GO bonds, you wouldn't have to discuss that. You'll see it as an entry,
Yeah.
voted debt millage, an extra quarter of a point or whatever it is.
Right.
That's totally apart from this other discussion.
Okay. No, again, new information, and it's very helpful. I guess the risk on that is that if the public, the residents vote it down.
Right. And then if you still want to do it, then you have to find another revenue source, or you have to voluntarily raise the property taxes, voluntarily meaning amongst you all,
Right.
and then impose it on the residents to pay for whatever it is that you want to pay for.
Okay. Thank you for that. Golden Gem Road, I know it was kind of like pushed, like it's somewhat ambiguous right now.
That's in the transportation impact
Yeah.
fee
I mean,
fund.
shouldn't we be budgeting for that in some way since we're most
He-
likely taking
they
that
had
over?
$5 million, I think.
They were saying it was like 10 to 12 million.
10 or 12, he said, but they had 5 million.
5 each year.
Well, man, with the Golden Gym Road and with the impact fee fund, what you have to remember is we have obligations under that pioneering agreement.
Right.
Okay, so we're trying to pace ourselves with that funding. And he said that that project would not be done in 1 year. So if he has the 5 million this year, if the funds are available, he may request the additional funds in the next year's budget. But we do need to pace ourselves because we do have obligations out there under this pioneering agreement.
Generally, what amount for the Pioneer Agreement?
Right now, off the top again, I'm going to say about 14 right now. Yeah, that's what we have sitting, Mayor, basically in the escrow account. So about 14 million, but any future impact fees that come in, like in FY26, that is tied to that pioneering agreement, we still have to set those aside.
And that's all budgeted in this budget.
Not to set aside, but the upcoming impact fees. But I did pull out, you make sure we had excess reserves to cover the obligations that I'm aware of today.
So we didn't budget for what we will have to set aside. Other than
Because
out
I
of
have no
reserves.
idea what that is going to be. No, I don't.
Okay.
But it will be factored in that. So we'll.
All right. Are we ready to finish this off?
Mhm.
All right. I need to read this. I want a motion to approve and set the rollback millage rate for the 2025 tax year as 4.4146. So here's the compliance. So in accordance with the truth and millage compliance requirements as set forth in Chapter 200 of Florida statutes, the city must set the proposed millage rate and advise the property appraiser of the proposed millage rate, rollback rate, date, time, and place of the tentative budget hearing. The tentative budget hearing is scheduled for Wednesday, September 3rd, 2025 at 5:15 p.m. in the City Council chambers. The statute requires separate motions. The operating millage rate used in preparation of the budget draft of 4.6876 is 6.18% higher than the rollback rate of 4.4146. A mill is the tax rate for each $1,000 of taxable property value. I'm looking for a motion to approve and set the proposed operating millage rate for the two.
First, let's go with the rollback rate. We got to do that one
Okay,
first.
okay, I need a motion to approve and set the rollback millage rate for the 2025 tax year at 4.4146.
That's just setting it. That's not. We're not changing it to that.
No.
It's just you have to set it
Acknowledge what it is.
because that's what's calculated in the forms that I do it.
Okay.
Okay.
Got a motion by Commissioner Anderson,
Second.
second by Commissioner Smith. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Now I need a motion to approve and set the proposed operating millage rate for the 2025 tax year at 4.6876 mils.
So moved.
Got a motion by Commissioner Velasquez, second by Commissioner Anderson. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries with 4-1 with Commissioner Nesta in opposition.
Okay.
I need a motion to set the date, time, and place for the public hearing on the tentative budget for fiscal year 2025-26 as Wednesday, September 3rd, 2025 at 5:15 p.m. in City Hall Council chambers.
So moved.
Got a motion by Commissioner Velasquez,
Second.
second by Commissioner Smith. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you very
And
much.
with that, thank you. Appreciate everybody's help on getting us to this point.
Thank you.